Overnight, President Trump calling on Republicans in Congress to take action and change the rules in the Senate to reopen the government with a simple majority vote instead of the 60 votes currently needed. The president posting online, it's now time for Republicans to play their Trump card and go for what is called the nuclear option. Get rid of the filibuster and get rid of it now.
And it's an honor now to sign this incredible bill and get our country working again. Thank you.
The government is reopening after the longest shutdown in U.S. history.
This morning, the bombshell release of what House Democrats say are emails to and from deceased convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, several referring to President Donald Trump by name. In an April 2011 email released by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, lawmakers say Epstein wrote to his now convicted accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, 3 years after pleading guilty to telling her, "I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump." Unnamed victims spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned.
So Mike Johnson just had the worst week of his entire political career. And honestly, it might be the end of him as speaker. Like, we're not talking about a bad news cycle here. We're not talking about some minor embarrassment that blows over in a couple days. We're talking about a complete and total public meltdown that got caught on camera, went viral, and showed the entire country that Congress is basically a dumpster fire right now. And Mike Johnson, he's the one holding the matches. Can you believe this? The Speaker of the House, the guy who's supposed to be in control, who's supposed to be leading, just had a full-blown emotional breakdown in front of reporters, colleagues, and the entire nation. And it's not just that he lost his cool, it's that he lost control of the entire situation. His press conference got crashed, his authority got challenged, his leadership got exposed as totally hollow. And now the videos are everywhere, and people are asking the only question that matters: how much longer can this guy survive? But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust headlines anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
The House of Representatives is closed for business again. The record-shattering 43-day-long shutdown coincided with an impromptu 53-day vacation for House Republicans. To end the shutdown, Speaker Mike Johnson had to call the House back in session. He did, for roughly 8 hours Wednesday. Then he gave House members the rest of the week off. In quotes, what do you make of Speaker Johnson? Ross Story asked Representative Don Beyer, Democrat of Virginia, "You guys have just been gone for like more than a month, but you guys are just there for one day and then you're gone?" In quotes, he's the most disappointing member of the U.S. Congress, Beyer said, just off the Capitol.
Here's what happened. Johnson called a press conference to talk about the government shutdown. You know, the one that's been going on for over 40 days now, because Congress can't get its act together. He probably thought it would be a normal event, make some statements, take some questions, look like he's in charge. Except it didn't go that way at all, because right in the middle of his carefully planned photo op, Democratic Representative Chrissy Holohan just walked right up and crashed the whole thing. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't ask politely. She just interrupted him on camera and demanded that he actually do his job. She told him, "You represent all of us. You are the speaker for all of us, sir, and you need to start acting like it." And Johnson, he had no idea what to do. He tried to talk over her. He tried to wave her off. He tried to regain control of his own press conference. But it was too late. The chaos had already started. Other Democrats joined in. People started shouting. Questions were flying from every direction. And Johnson, visibly upset and completely overwhelmed, just gave up. He abruptly ended the event, walked away, left reporters standing there with their mouths hanging open. But here's the thing. That wasn't even the worst part. Because later that same day, after he'd had time to cool off, Johnson held another event. And this time he really lost it. He stood there in front of cameras and said, and I'm quoting here, "I don't like being mad, Mike. I want to be happy, Mike. But I am so upset about all this. God bless America." Like, are you kidding me? The Speaker of the House is out here talking about Mad Mike and Happy Mike like he's having some kind of identity crisis. This is the guy who's supposed to be negotiating billion-dollar budgets and international treaties, and he's melting down on camera talking about his feelings. The videos went viral immediately. People couldn't believe what they were seeing, and honestly, neither could I, because this isn't just embarrassing for Johnson. This is embarrassing for the entire institution of Congress. This is the kind of moment that makes people lose faith in government completely. And it gets worse, because the chaos wasn't just at the press conferences. It spilled over onto the Capitol steps. Capitol Police had to intervene. There were confrontations, shouting matches, physical altercations, narrowly avoided. The whole scene looked less like the United States Congress and more like a reality TV show that got canceled for being too dramatic. And through it all, Johnson just kept making it worse. He lashed out at colleagues. He snapped at reporters. He got defensive with protesters. Every single interaction made him look weaker, more unstable, more completely out of his depth. Party leaders on both sides are now openly talking about dysfunction and chaos. Prominent Republicans are warning that the wheels came off. Democrats are demanding leadership changes. And Johnson, poor Mike Johnson, is stuck in the middle of it all, looking like a man who's drowning and doesn't know how to swim. This shutdown has been going on for over 40 days now. 40 days of Congress doing absolutely nothing while government services get disrupted and federal workers miss paychecks and the country watches in disgust. And the whole time, Johnson has refused to meet with Democrats, refused to negotiate, refused to even try to find a compromise. He's been taking orders from the MAGA wing of his party, the extremists who don't want any deal at all, and hoping that somehow Democrats would just cave, but they didn't cave. And now the pressure is crushing him. Now the public confrontations are exposing him. Now everyone can see that he has no plan, no strategy, no idea how to get out of this mess he's created. And the emotional breakdown we all watch, that's what happens when someone realizes they're in way over their head and there's no way out. So yeah, Mike Johnson is melting down, Congress is in chaos, and the American people are watching all of this unfold in real time thinking, this is our government? These are the people we elected to solve problems? Because right now, it doesn't look like they can solve anything. It looks like they can barely hold a press conference without it turning into a viral disaster. And that's terrifying because we've got real problems in this country, real issues that need real solutions. But instead of getting leadership, instead of getting competence, we're getting Mad Mike and Happy Mike having public breakdowns on the Capitol steps. This isn't governance. This is a circus. And Mike Johnson is the clown in the center ring. All right, so let's talk about what actually went down. Because the details of this meltdown are even more insane than the headline suggests. The press conference that Chrissy Holohan crashed, that wasn't some informal gathering. That was supposed to be Johnson's big moment to frame the shutdown narrative. He had his talking points ready, his allies lined up behind him, the cameras positioned perfectly. This was supposed to be his chance to look presidential, to look in control, to show the country that he had a plan. Except he didn't count on Democrats being done with his games. He didn't count on Holohan walking right up to the podium and calling him out to his face. And he definitely didn't count on losing control so completely and so publicly that even his own party members started backing away from him. When Holohan interrupted, and make no mistake, it was an interruption, she didn't mince words. She told Johnson that he'd been refusing to do his job for more than 40 days, that he hadn't met with Democrats, hadn't tried to negotiate, hadn't even attempted to find common ground. She reminded him, in front of everyone, that he's not just the speaker for Republicans, he's the speaker for the entire House, for all 435 members, and that means he has a responsibility to represent everyone, not just the MAGA extremists who put him in power. And Johnson, he had no good answer. He stuttered, he deflected, he tried to change the subject, but Holohan wasn't backing down. She kept pushing, kept demanding answers, kept forcing him to confront his own failures. And the more she pushed, the more Johnson fell apart. You could see it on his face, the frustration, the anger, the realization that he was losing control of the narrative in real time on national television. Other Democrats saw what was happening and decided to pile on. They started shouting questions from the crowd, demanding to know why Johnson wouldn't negotiate, why he wouldn't end the shutdown, why he was letting the MAGA tail wag the entire Republican dog. And Johnson, visibly shaken now, tried to answer, tried to defend himself, tried to explain why 40 days of government shutdown was somehow a reasonable strategy, but every answer just made things worse. Every explanation sounded weaker than the last. Every attempt to regain control just highlighted how much control he'd already lost. Finally, mercifully, one of his aides stepped in and ended the event. Johnson walked away without finishing his prepared remarks, without answering most of the questions, without accomplishing any of the goals he set for the press conference. It was a complete disaster, the kind of political train wreck that ends careers. But Johnson being Johnson, he decided to try again later that same day. Maybe he thought he could salvage the situation. Maybe he thought a second event would give him a chance to look stronger. Maybe he just couldn't accept that he failed so spectacularly. Whatever the reason, he called another press availability. And this one was somehow even worse, because this time there was no interruption, no Democratic ambush, just Johnson standing in front of cameras and completely falling apart, all on his own. He started rambling about being upset, about how he didn't want to be angry, but couldn't help it, about how the whole situation was making him feel. And then, and this is the part that really went viral, he said, "I don't like being mad, Mike. I want to be happy, Mike." Like what? Who talks like that? Who stands in front of the national media and talks about their emotional state using third-person nicknames? A leader who's lost the plot. That's who. A speaker who's completely overwhelmed and doesn't know how to handle the pressure. And the thing is, you could almost feel sorry for him if he hadn't brought this entirely on himself. Johnson chose to align himself with the MAGA extremists. He chose to refuse negotiations with Democrats. He chose to let the government shut down rather than compromise on anything. And now that the consequences of those choices are crushing him, he wants sympathy, he wants understanding. Come on, this is the bed he made. And now he's lying in it, on camera, for the whole world to see. The reaction was swift and brutal. Republicans started distancing themselves immediately. Some wouldn't even defend him when reporters asked. Others just shook their heads and walked away when questioned about the meltdown. The message was clear. Johnson is on his own. The party isn't going to go down with his sinking ship. Democrats naturally were thrilled. They've been trying to paint Johnson as weak and ineffective for weeks, and now he'd just proven them right on national television. Multiple times in the same day, Houlihan herself went on news shows defending her decision to crash the press conference. She says someone had to confront him. Someone had to force him to face reality. And honestly, she's not wrong. Johnson has been hiding behind carefully staged events and controlled messaging for over a month, avoiding hard questions, dodging accountability, pretending like the shutdown wasn't his fault. Houlihan just ripped away that facade and exposed what was underneath: a speaker who has no idea what he's doing and no plan for how to fix it. The chaos on the Capitol steps, that was just a physical manifestation of the political chaos that's been brewing for weeks. When Capitol Police have to intervene at a routine press event, when members of Congress are shouting at each other in public, when the entire system looks like it's seconds away from completely breaking down, you know something has gone seriously wrong. And what's gone wrong is leadership, or more specifically, the complete absence of it. Johnson isn't leading anyone. He's being led by the MAGA caucus, by Trump's demands, by the extremist wing of his own party that doesn't care about governing and only cares about making noise and getting attention. And that's not a strategy. That's a recipe for disaster, which is exactly what we're watching unfold. Party leaders are now openly questioning Johnson's ability to survive. There's talk of votes of no confidence, whispers about potential replacements, speculation about whether he'll even make it to the end of the year as speaker. And all of it stems from these viral moments of public humiliation. Because in politics, perception is reality. And the perception right now is that Mike Johnson is a weak leader having a public breakdown while Congress burns around him. That's not the kind of perception you recover from easily. That's not the kind of viral moment that just goes away. That's the kind of thing that defines a political career. And right now, it's defining Johnson's as a complete and utter failure. The government shutdown itself, the actual policy crisis that started all of this, has almost become secondary to the leadership crisis. People aren't even talking about the budget anymore. They're talking about Johnson's meltdown, his emotional outbursts, his inability to handle pressure. And that's the thing about viral moments. They take on a life of their own. They become the story. They define the narrative, and once that narrative is set, it's almost impossible to change. Johnson is now forever the guy who melted down on camera, the speaker who talked about Mad Mike and Happy Mike, the leader who got shouted down at his own press conference and didn't know how to respond. That's his legacy now, and it's a legacy of weakness and failure. All right, so let's break down what this actually means, because there are really three massive takeaways from this absolute disaster. Point 1, Mike Johnson has lost control of Congress, and everyone knows it. This isn't speculation anymore. This isn't partisan spin. This is observable reality, confirmed by multiple viral videos and public confrontations. When a Democratic member can walk up to your press conference, interrupt you, challenge your leadership, and all you can do is stutter and walk away, you've lost control. When you have to end events early because you can't handle the questions, you've lost control. When Capitol Police have to intervene because chaos is breaking out around you, you've lost control. And Johnson has lost control of all of it. He can't manage his own press conferences. He can't negotiate with the opposition. He can't even keep his own emotional state together long enough to get through a 5-minute statement. That's not leadership. That's a man who's drowning in responsibilities he never should have taken on in the first place. And here's the thing about losing control in politics. Once it's gone, it's almost impossible to get back. Because power in Congress isn't just about your official title. It's about perception. It's about whether people believe you can deliver, whether they think you're competent, whether they trust you to handle pressure. And Johnson just showed the entire country that he can't. He crumbles under confrontation. He falls apart when challenged. He resorts to emotional outbursts instead of strategic thinking. No one is going to follow a leader like that. No one is going to trust a speaker who talks about Mad Mike and Happy Mike instead of presenting actual solutions. And without that trust, without that perception of competence, Johnson is just a guy with a fancy title and no real power. He's a placeholder, a figurehead, a lame duck speaker limping through his final days in charge. Point 2. The government shutdown has now become a symbol of broader congressional dysfunction, and it's destroying public trust in the institution. We're over 40 days into this shutdown, 40 days of Congress failing to do the most basic function of government, passing a budget. 40 days of federal workers going without paychecks. 40 days of government services being disrupted. 40 days of America watching its elected representatives prove that they're incapable of governing. And the worst part, there's no end in sight. Johnson won't negotiate. Democrats won't cave. The MAGA caucus won't compromise. Everyone is dug in. Everyone is pointing fingers. And nobody is actually trying to solve the problem. This isn't governance. This is political theater at its absolute worst. And the American people are paying the price for it. Public trust in Congress is already at historic lows. People already think politicians are corrupt, incompetent, more interested in fighting than fixing problems. And then they turn on the news and see Mike Johnson melting down on camera, talking about his feelings while the government remains shut down. They see members of Congress shouting at each other on the Capitol steps. They see chaos and dysfunction and complete institutional failure. And they think, why are we paying these people? What exactly are we getting for our tax dollars? Because it's certainly not competent leadership. It's certainly not functional government. It's just drama, viral moments, public breakdowns, and endless gridlock. This shutdown is going to have consequences way beyond the immediate budget crisis. It's going to further erode faith in democratic institutions. It's going to make people even more cynical about politics. It's going to feed into the narrative that government doesn't work and can't work, and that's dangerous. Because when people stop believing in institutions, when they stop trusting that government can solve problems, that's when democracy starts to fail. Point 3. Johnson's emotional breakdown reveals fracture in MAGA unity and raises serious questions about his political future. Because here's what people need to understand. Johnson isn't just some random speaker having a bad week. He's a MAGA-aligned leader who was supposed to be Trump's guy in Congress. He was supposed to be strong, uncompromising, willing to fight Democrats no matter what. That was his whole brand. That was why the MAGA caucus supported him for speaker in the first place. But now he's publicly falling apart. Now he's showing weakness. Now he's demonstrating that he can't handle the pressure of actually leading. And the MAGA wing doesn't tolerate weakness. They don't have sympathy for leaders who crack under pressure. They eat their own when they sense vulnerability. And Johnson just showed them he's vulnerable. There are already whispers about potential challengers, Republicans who think they could do better, MAGA members who are disappointed in Johnson's inability to deliver, moderates who think he's too extreme. Everyone is circling. Everyone is measuring the drapes. Everyone is starting to think about what comes after Johnson. Because in politics, the moment people start openly questioning your ability to survive, you're already done. The vultures start circling, the knives come out, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Johnson's viral meltdown has started that process. The speculation has begun. The leadership crisis is underway, and unless he can somehow turn this around, unless he can somehow regain control and restore confidence, his days as speaker are numbered. So why does all of this matter? Why should anyone care about Mike Johnson's bad week and congressional dysfunction? Because this is our government. These are the people making decisions that affect our lives. And right now, they can't even handle a press conference without it turning into a viral disaster. They can't negotiate a budget. They can't work together. They can't govern. And that has real consequences for real people. Federal workers aren't getting paid. Government services are disrupted. National security is compromised. Economic uncertainty is increasing. All because Congress is too dysfunctional to do its basic job. And when the Speaker of the House is melting down on camera instead of solving problems, that's not just embarrassing. That's genuinely concerning, because it suggests that the institution is broken at a fundamental level. Johnson's breakdown is a symptom of a much larger disease, the disease of hyperpartisanship, of political extremism, of leaders who care more about viral moments and cable news hits than actually governing, of a system that rewards confrontation over compromise and drama over deliberation. And until we address that underlying disease, until we fix the incentives that created this dysfunction, we're going to keep seeing moments like this. We're going to keep watching our government fail in real time. We're going to keep losing faith in institutions that are supposed to serve us. And that's a recipe for democratic decline. That's how republics fall apart, not with a bang, but with a whimper, with a series of viral videos showing leaders having public breakdowns while the country burns around them. So where does this go from here? Well, the shutdown continues. Johnson remains speaker for now, but his grip on power is weakening by the day. Republicans are distancing themselves. Democrats are emboldened. The MAGA caucus is getting restless, and everyone is waiting to see what breaks first, the budget impasse or Johnson's leadership. My money is on Johnson, because a man who talks about Mad Mike and Happy Mike on national television is not a man who's going to survive political hardball for very long. The videos are out there. The damage is done. The perception is set. And in politics, perception is everything. Johnson is now perceived as weak, as unstable, as incapable of handling the pressures of leadership, and you can't unring that bell. You can't make people unsee what they've already seen. The broader question is, what comes next for Congress? Because even if Johnson goes, even if they find someone new to be speaker, the underlying dysfunction remains. The partisan gridlock remains. The inability to compromise remains. The shutdown could drag on for weeks or even months more. And every day it continues is another day that proves to the American people that their government doesn't work. That's the real crisis here, not Johnson's personal breakdown, but the institutional breakdown it represents. The complete failure of Congress to perform its basic constitutional functions. And that's not something a new speaker can fix overnight. That's going to require fundamental reforms, new rules, new incentives, a complete rethinking of how Congress operates. Otherwise, we're just going to keep seeing this same pattern, repeat, different faces, same dysfunction, same viral disasters, same failure to govern. But here's the thing, those reforms aren't coming, not anytime soon, because the people in power benefit from the current system. They get attention from the chaos, they raise money off the drama, they build their brands by being as extreme and confrontational as possible. So why would they change? Why would they fix a system that's working perfectly for their personal political interests, even if it's destroying the institution itself? They won't. Which means we're stuck with this. Stuck with government shutdowns, stuck with viral meltdowns, stuck with leaders like Mike Johnson having public breakdowns while pretending to be in charge. And all we can do is watch and vote and hope that eventually, somehow, enough people get fed up with the dysfunction that they demand something better. But until that day comes, get used to Mad Mike, get used to capital chaos, get used to watching your government fail in the most embarrassing ways possible, because this is where we are now, and it's only going to get worse before it gets better.